As we reported, new data released by the Labor Department today show consumer prices are surging at a rate not seen in almost 4 decades. Inflation is up 6.8% over this time last year, due in large part to rising food and energy prices. I spoke a short time ago with Jared Bernstein, a member of President Biden's Council of Economic Advisors. Jared Bernstein, welcome back to the NewsHour. So prices climbing at their fastest rate since 1982. How big a problem for the country is this?
Well, this is something that the president considers a real challenge to family budgets. Even a moderate amount of inflation he's mentioned can be a challenge. However, we also have to recognize that we are in the midst of one of the strongest labor market recoveries on record. That's certainly helping to lift people's job opportunities and lift their paychecks. We're talking about unemployment claims that are down to a level we haven't seen since 1969, fastest falling unemployment rates on record, 6 million jobs since we've gotten here. But at the same time, price pressures, you're absolutely right. And we are doing everything we can, many more levers actually, that we're trying to pull than I even envisioned. I've been in this business a long time from the White House, having to do with our work on the ports, having to do with taking down the price of gas, which actually has come down a bit in the past few weeks, didn't make it into this inflation report, and having to do make sure that there's enough competition between companies that savings are being passed forward to consumers.
You mentioned jobs, and there's no question there is some good news on the jobs front. Wages are up, but we now see that these inflation numbers are overwhelming wage increases. They've outpaced them. So what do you say to people out there who, I mean, polls show people pay more attention to inflation, frankly, than they do to a few more dollars in the paycheck?
Well, a couple of things. First of all, again, this is precisely the kind of challenge that we are focused on with laser energy. The president is instructing his team to do all we can to help ameliorate these pressures. Now, when you're talking on the wage side, if you look at the wages of hotel workers, of restaurant workers, of workers in warehousing and transportation, key sectors right now where labor demand is particularly strong, those wages are beating inflation, consistently so. They've done so for a number of months now. They are growing faster than inflation, so real wage gains in those sectors. Same for the bottom 25%. This is part of the Biden jobs boom. Workers, particularly in low-wage sectors, have real bargaining power. That's core for Bidenomics. That's something that this president believed he came here to help make happen. So that's part of what's happening here. At the same time, we have to make sure that those broad-based wage gains evolve for all Americans. And that means we have to try to, again, unsnarl the chains in the supply chain so that the logistics can flow more smoothly, that goods can flow through the system more quickly. Now, we are having some success there. Judy, I don't think I've ever thought more about dwell time in my career, which is the amount of time that a container spends on the ports. It's down about a third since we started working with some of the ports in LA and Long Beach to help get things from ship to shelf more quickly. We talked about some of the gains on the gasoline side. That has our fingerprints on it as well through the release of the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. So there are things we can do. We're doing them. We're going to relentlessly be attacking this problem.
Just one other thing I do want to ask you about, to come back to, you mentioned Build Back Better. That's sitting in the Senate right now. The president says inflation doesn't undercut the need for that, but you know there are plenty of critics out there in both parties who are saying, do we really need to spend trillions more at a time when inflation is rising? Even people who are on your side, who worked with you in the Obama administration, saying that the administration has just ignored inflation too long.
Yeah. Well, so, I hope that you have captured from our discussion today that we are doing anything but ignoring. We're working as hard as we can to loosen these pressures on American families and on their budgets. But I want to unequivocally say here for the record that Building Back Better ameliorates price pressures in the long run by helping to build up the economy's capacity through greater labor supply, on the infrastructure plan, through investments in infrastructure, and these will ease long-term inflationary pressures. In the near term, Building Back Better does nothing to the current inflation, to the things that we're talking about now, these month-to-month prints that we're describing today. What it does do is help cut costs for middle-class and lower-income families, costs in prescription drugs, costs in childcare, costs in education, costs in housing. Some of the most challenging aspects of family budgets. Building Back Better helps to ameliorate those costs. It ameliorates near-term costs. It lowers inflationary pressures over the longer term.
Jared Bernstein with President Biden's Council of Economic Advisors. Thank you very much.
My pleasure, Judy.